Download the TuneIn app today.
On a hideous day for the broader market, although I admit that it was worse at one point, I always search for the groups that manage to defy the gravitational pull of the average to get a sense of what's working. Today, it was the cannabis cohort, which blazed higher on no real news. In fact, these pot stocks have been getting high pretty consistently since the beginning of the year. The Alternative Harvest ETF, which aptly trades under the symbol MJ, has pole vaulted up more than 35% for 2019. Meanwhile, Cramer fave Canopy Growth, which I had flogged endlessly here, has shot up nearly 89% over the same period, reversing nearly all of its losses from the monster fourth quarter sell-off. This followed a group was laid to waste last year and now is making a major comeback. Frankly, I hate to chase stocks that have run, so I can't in good conscience recommend the marijuana stocks after this move today. These things tend to seesaw back and forth, so I figured you get a better buying opportunity, but I want to give you the lay of the land. I still think that legalized weed is one of the great growth stories of our era. I think the total addressable market is $500 billion. I'm really a bull, which is why we've had so many of these companies on the show, hopefully to explain where they fall within the cannabis ecosystem. Now, so for those of you who want to speculate on the bull market for bud, hopefully at lower levels than where we are right now, I've got 5 predictions for the future of the marijuana industry, and if those are really involved, you might want to write these down because they're spot on. Prediction number 1, and this one's kind of obvious, I know. The legalization wave that's sweeping North America will continue. Canada ended cannabis prohibition in October. Here in the U.S., state after state has legalized or decriminalized, or at least allowed for medical marijuana. Nearly every time this gets put up for vote, legalization wins. Michigan just became, I mean, when you think of this, get this, became the 10th state to end prohibition when they voted in November. Well, that doesn't go into effect fully until next year. But Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, very much an establishing kind of guy, just came out in favor of legalizing recreational weed late last year. And given that his party controls both houses of the state legislature, this could happen a lot sooner than you might expect. Remember, these guys are all saying, hey, let's get the money and let's get the tax in. It's going to help their budget. Of course, every state could legalize this, and marijuana would still be against the law until we get some action from the federal government. However, William Barr, President Trump's new nominee for Attorney General, has indicated that he doesn't plan to go after marijuana users that are complying with state law. That was previous regime not. You were always concerned. Plus, I think Congress will be more willing to pass a law descheduling marijuana. Do you know that right now marijuana is classified like cocaine or heroin? Isn't that kind of crazy? As our politicians realize this is actually a very popular, very mainstream position. Speaking of Congress, brings to me my second prediction, the rise of cannabidiol. And that cannabidiol is CBD, all right? This is really important. About a month ago, President Trump signed the 2018 Farm Bill into law. Why does that matter? Why should we care? Because Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell snuck a little provision into that Farm Bill, and that provision legalizes the cultivation of industrial hemp, meaning cannabis, which actually has very low levels of THC, the active ingredient that gets people high. So hemp is no longer a controlled substance. That's going to give the CBD market a major boost. Now, you may have seen these CBD products already. They're in a lot of stores. I went to one of these rest stops on the highway, and they had all these different teas that were CBD. They tasted terrible. Now, we know marijuana has medicinal properties, and in many cases, they aren't associated with THC, the part of the plant that gets you high. That's where CBD comes in. You get the medical benefits without getting stoned. I think the possibilities here are enormous. You can put it in food, you can put it in beverages, you can put it in skincare. Immediately after the Farm Bill passed, Canopy Growth, the best-of-breed player in the Canadian cannabis space, announced it would be entering the United States to play the CBD market. So expect to hear a lot more about CBD as 2019 goes on, because I believe this could be a massive opportunity. Some people think it's going to be big as beer. I don't think so. Prediction number 3. Last year felt like the Wild West for the pot stocks. You've gotten all sorts of players, and it can be hard to tell which ones are legitimate. But in 2019, I'm betting we see the emergence of a handful of major operators. To some extent, this has happened already with Canopy Growth, Cronos, Tilray, and Aurora Cannabis separating themselves from the rest of the pack. Those are the big 4. There's an even smaller subset of plays that have already built up a great deal of capital. Just Canopy and Cronos, thanks to investments from huge consumer packaged goods companies, really stand out. I think that gives them a huge advantage over the competition. Remember, Canopy got $4 billion from Constellation. Now, how will these leaders establish themselves? In part, they'll do it by scooping up smaller players. Canopy already started going on a deal binge in November, and I think that's going to continue through this year, too. Fourth, I predict 2019 will be all about branding for the pot industry. Or as Mel Brooks put it in Spaceballs, merchandising, merchandising, merchandising. By the end of the year, I think the major marijuana brands will be household names. I expect a massive marketing push from these cannabis companies as they go from building out their production and distribution infrastructure to fighting each other for market share. Honestly, I find this really fascinating. How often do you see an industry start from scratch with no brand loyalty whatsoever? Cannabis is about as far as it gets from the traditional consumer packaged goods space, where you might wear Old Spice deodorant because your granddad wore it. Me. That kind of thing just simply doesn't really exist for marijuana. Hardly. So, if lawmakers allow it, expect a lot of slick marketing campaigns, celebrity endorsements, and anything else that these companies can think of to grab your attention and build a name for themselves. Finally, as the marijuana stocks get higher and higher, I think Wall Street will start giving more credit to a pair of marijuana-adjacent biotechs called GW Pharmaceutical, which you know I've liked for a very long time, and Corbis, which we've also featured. We featured both on Mad Money. These are not pot companies. They are drug companies focused on developing artificial cannabinoids that mimic what cannabis does to your body. Corbis is a tiny speculative company that's trying to come up with treatments for inflammatory and fibrotic diseases, including cystic fibrosis. GW Pharma is focused on neurology, and they already have an epilepsy drug on the market. Why do I see these stocks benefiting? Because as cannabis companies try to push clinical trials for medicinal marijuana, and by the way, that's something that Canopy's doing, I think they're going to run into one big problem. They're going to run into a problem of dosing. At the end of the day, we're talking about a plant here. So there's always going to be a lot of variability between one batch and another. Drug companies like Corbis and GW, they don't have that problem. They can mimic the qualities of cannabis while also giving you a consistent dose. So as we get more and more data showing the efficacy of medicinal marijuana, I think more investors will embrace actual medicines that do the same thing as marijuana, but they do it more reliably so you can get a prescription. Bottom line, the cannabis cohort is red hot right now. Too hot for me, frankly, to recommend, at least at these levels. And I have been behind Canopy the whole way. But the next time the group pulls back, I want you to think about where this industry is headed. This is a huge growth business. So I want you to put Canopy and Cronos on your shopping list. The latter had a big move today. And wait patiently for the next sell-off, because I need you to have a better entry point. Stick with Cramer.
Hawaii is the first state in the U.S. to have a 100% renewable energy goal. If we don't make this move, we're going to have changes in our environment and have a negative impact to Hawaii's economy.